Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video showing you guys how to fly a go-around using, I suppose, any airliner, but today we're using the A32NX Fly-by-Wire Mod. So we're offline, we're not on VATSIM or anything like that, and we're just bumbling along in the Somerset country. Inbound on a Bristol 3 Charlie arrival, I think. Expecting runway 27, and we've got our ILS frequencies and things all set up ready to go as well. If you're new to the channel, make sure you click on that subscribe button. We're going to need a few things for this demonstration. We're going to need, I'll just very quickly get the weather from our METAR in the MCDU. 10 degrees. 2208 knots wind, QNH 1011, perf. And we set our minimums, 100 foot. So, what do we do and how do we do it? We've got the ILS frequency already programmed in for the ILS approach that we are expecting, and we would in reality be potentially getting vectors from air traffic control telling us what direction to fly in and everything else, but we haven't got that, so we're going to have a little look at the charts. And you can see already I've got ADF frequency 414.0 programmed in, and that is the NDB frequency that we need to have ready for our go around. So if I share the charts with you guys, these are the approach plates for Bristol Airport, runway 27, which is what we are going to use for the purpose of today. And you can see that arrow I've just drawn, it says BRI 414, and that's the NDB station that we've tuned in. And the ILS frequency 11015 is that box that I've just drawn there for you guys, IBTS 110.15. So let's clear all this and have a little look. So we're flying in via Pomax on a Bristol 1 Charlie or Bristol 3 Charlie or something like that. And at Bristol Airport, at least, most of the arrivals route you in north or south of the airport, and then it involves overflying that BRI NDB, which is on the airport, that little square that I've just drawn. And then we have to fly one of these two sort of terminal procedures that you can see here, these weird little like a whisk sort of diagram. Category A, B, C and D. And you can see the ILS localizer sort of directional guidance there. So what do we do if we need to go around? We're going to set up for our approach runway 27, and we're going to fly in on the ILS as we would normally, approach mode, descending with a glide slope and everything else. Now, always have the charts ready, depending on whatever, whichever airport you're flying into, because I've been on VATSIM a number of times, and I've been told to go around because another aircraft on the ground has made a mistake, misinterpreted something, taxied onto the runway while I was on finals, or another aircraft hasn't vacated quite quickly enough when it's been very busy, and the separation distance between ourselves flying in behind them suddenly was too small, so we had to go around. And I've been told by air traffic control multiple times now on VATSIM to go around, but I have all of these approach plates open and ready just in case, so I've never been caught out by surprise. So I'm hoping you guys find this helpful. I'm only explaining it in the way that I understand it, and at least how I use it. And make sure you click that subscribe button while you're here. I'd be very grateful. So we're going to fly in. I haven't quite yet decided if we're going to fly in using the usual route without any air traffic control, or if I'm going to pretend that we've got ATC and we get vectored. But for now, we'll just explain the charts. Now if we scroll down to the very bottom here, I've highlighted a number of things. So let me just clear that. If you look here, there's a dotted arrow and 268 degrees. And if we go back to the charts here, we can see the same thing here. And that's telling us that in the event of a missed approach, or if we get radio failure or anything else, we suddenly can't communicate with the tower. Missed approach or go around, we fly that heading 268 degrees, and you can see there it's a straight line. So we would just fly a straight line on that heading, which would be the runway heading, until we're told otherwise. And that would be air traffic control saying to us, turn left now or turn right now, heading 290 degrees, climb 3,000 feet, or whatever that instruction might be. So if air traffic control give us an instruction, that takes precedence, and we follow their instructions. So we've got the NDB for Bristol tuned in, and we can see here this little box. In the event of a missed approach, this is telling us to climb straight ahead, which is that heading 268 degrees that we just talked about. We've climbed to 3,000 feet and then as directed, and that would be as directed by the tower. And then in the case of a radio failure or comms failure, we climb straight ahead, and then at the end of the runway we turn to NDB Bristol at 3,000. So everything basically means that we reset ourselves for another approach. So we're flying in on our ILS approach, and at DME 5.8 we're established on the localizer, we're descending with that glide, and then around here somewhere, say 200 feet, something happens. Either air traffic control tell us to go around, or there's an issue with the aircraft or safety that we as the pilots need to resolve, and the safest thing would be to abort the landing. So either air traffic control tell us to go around, or we decide to go around. And whatever that decision would be, it needs to be instant. So we would activate toga mode on the throttle, and we would pitch up and climb, and we'd follow those instructions that they've given us on the charts. You can see now we're starting to get close. That NDB that I've tuned in on that RadNav page, that 414.0, you can see that when we go to the ILS, you can see that green arrow flashing away. It's the same on the VOR tab. If we were flying a VOR approach, that green flashing arrow is tracking the NDB. So that's what we will be using for today's demonstration. I'm just going to slow us down slightly to the next level, just so it buys us a bit more time when it comes to trying to explain everything. So we're going to fly in on the glide slope, and whatever reason we're going to have to go around and abort the landing. So it could be air traffic control saying to us, Speedbird 52 Papa, go around. In which case we fly the aircraft first, toga mode, pitch the aircraft up, climb to 3,000 feet, and air traffic control would probably then tell us turn right heading 290 or whatever the instruction would be. But in the absence of that, they might tell us to fly a standard missed approach, in which case we would have to use the charts. If I look at, so here for example, we'd have to fly that heading 268 degrees, and then as we're getting up to 3,000 feet we would turn right on ourselves, and we would be tracking that green flashing arrow back to that NDB station here, BRI, and then we'd overfly it, and then we would just continue to reset ourselves, fly heading 1303 degrees, and then turn left and head back. It's the same at Edinburgh as well. Edinburgh involves, if you go around, for example, you'd need to track the EDN, NDB and things like that. However, not every airport is the same. So this is Gatwick's, and those of you who tune into my channel regularly, you will know that I fly in and out of Gatwick pretty much all the time. And I've actually had quite a few go-arounds, all given by air traffic control whilst on the approach, very near to landing and things like that. And I've always had the plates open, so I know what to do and when to do it. So at Gatwick, you can see that we'd fly in heading 258 degrees on the ILS, but then we can see that dotted blue arrow goes down 178 degrees. So then we look at this plate, climb to 3,000 feet straight ahead. When we pass 2,000 feet, or the I Whiskey Whiskey inbound DME, which is basically the end of the runway in layman's terms, whichever is later, you then turn left heading 178, then as directed by ATC. And ATC would then vector you back round again, either fly you back to Mayfield and then back in for attempt number 2, which is what I've very frequently had, or they just tell you to turn, and next thing you know you're heading downwind and then back in again for your second attempt. And I've had both plenty of times. But if you have the plates open and you've gone through it in your head before you get there, then you can never really be caught out by it. At least you have a momentary understanding of what you might need to do in that immediate moment. So that's that Bristol 1 Charlie that we're flying in. So we're going to go ahead and demonstrate that then. We're using the A32NX Fly-by-Wire Mod. And you can see we need to overfly the NDB Bristol at 3,000 feet for that Bristol 1 Charlie arrival. Then we need to descend down to our 2,500 foot altitude in order for us to intercept that ILS. So we're flying in this sort of direction, and then we'd be over the NDB 103 degrees, and then we'd be 2,500 foot to intercept the ILS, and then we'd go in and land. However, in this instance, we have air traffic control, and they're telling us to now descend to 2,500 feet. And you can see the reason for it. If we look outside, we've got really high terrain, so we need to be conscious of that. And they're telling us now to turn. So there we go. We'll activate all of the landing modes and things. We've got the speed brake armed, auto brake set up ready. It's a medium auto brake landing at Bristol because of the short distance for the runway. And there we go, just approaching 2,500 feet now. So a quick refresh for that chart. We're now going to fly in this direction, and then we're going to intercept the ILS, and we're going to fly our approach. We've got that NDB BRI 414 tuned in, and all those dots and dashes is basically the signal, the Morse code that station sends out to the aircraft. So don't worry about that too much. And we're going to have to go around, so we're going to decide to go around. So we would announce Speedbird 52 Papa going around. And then we're going to fly as per the charts. So we know we need to climb to 3,000 feet, and we need to turn right to track back to the BRI 414 NDB, and get a piece of paper and have on there just a little diagram. So for me, I would write BRI with a little square, and I'd show us doing a little loop back 3,000, and then to the right of that underneath I would basically draw this 103 degrees, 8 DME, and then back round again 2,500 foot to intercept the ILS. So now nothing will trip me up, he says. You see Bristol just off in the distance on our 1 o'clock. We're just turning to intercept the ILS. So if we were on VATSIM, we would be calling up saying we're established on the ILS runway 27. And we don't have to have, because we don't expect to go around, we don't have to have that NDB tracking. We could just turn that off. So we have all the information we need for the approach. You can see then we're quite low compared to the glide slope itself, and we're just starting to bring that glide slope nearer to our location, and Bristol's just off in the distance. So 5, 6, 7 miles to go. Might as well just go gear down now, just to show you guys. And we're actually testing something at the moment today, which potentially is going to go into the A32NX by the time you guys see this video. And that's going to be a load of new enunciations for go-arounds. So we captured the glide slope, and we're now descending with it. And air traffic control would now tell us Speedbird 52 Papa, clear to land 27, runway 27, surface wind 217 at 2 knots, or whatever else. And we would read back, clear to land, Speedbird 52 Papa. We're monitoring everything as we go, so we can see that we are flying nice and straight into the runway. We've got the pappies there showing 2 red, 2 white. So that's our visual indication that we're on the glide slope nicely, and the ILS as well. We've got the 2 diamonds in the middle of those yellow lines, so everything's looking quite nice. But on VATSIM, there might be an aircraft ahead on the runway, or say for example, as I have had in the past, there's an aircraft at the hold point there waiting to depart. They're not quite listening to what's going on. They've been told to hold at Alpha 1 or whatever the hold point would be, and they've not quite listened to that properly. They've misheard and thought it meant line up and wait. And if that was the case, and he came onto that runway in a few seconds, as we get a bit closer, air traffic control would tell us, Speedbird 52 Papa, go around. But in this case, we are flying normally, and we might have, all of a sudden, we might get some really bad gusts of wind. The approach becomes very unstable and unsafe. Wind shear, for example. Or we notice there's a problem. We notice that there's an aircraft on the runway. So we're flying normally, still expecting to land. And then all of a sudden, oh, there's an aircraft on the runway there. So it would be toga, let the engine spool up a little bit, and then pull up. Fly the aircraft first, and then announce Speedbird 52 Papa going around. There we go. So now we need to track that VOR. So let's turn ADF on. We can get rid of the gear, bring the gear up. We are positive rate, climbing nicely. And we can start to bring the aircraft under control again. Reduce that throttle and things like that. And you can see now the aircraft has avoided that. It's taken itself out of approach phase. So we can activate autopilot again. We want to continue flying runway heading. We've got that set from the charts. It was 268 degrees. So what we can do is just for this, I'll activate approach mode again. And we're getting to 3,000 feet, but we know we need to track that VOR, so we need to turn right. And initially I'll just, because I know we need to head north, well, I'll just set 002, and you can see now that green arrow is starting to rotate with us, but it's actually remaining on that BRI VOR, so it's giving us a direction relative to the aircraft. So you can see that arrow's coming around slowly. So we need to continue the turnaround. And you can see now roughly it's say 0. It probably is 103 degrees, to be totally honest. So we can aim for that on the wheel. And we'll just monitor. You can see now slightly it's completely to the right hand side of us on our 3 o'clock. And if we go to external view, we can see Bristol Airport exactly on our 3 o'clock. And it's tracking that NDB station nicely. If we had air traffic control, they might have given us completely different instructions, and if they do, that's fine. We follow their instructions. So we need to keep turning until that green flashing arrow is directly ahead of us. There's Bristol Airport. We're going to overfly that NDB shortly, and when we do, we know from the charts. Here we go. There we are. So now we're tracking that NDB. It's slightly windy, so we need to bear in mind our track and our heading. So actually that green diamond is what we want to have on that arrow. And here we go, guys. Back over Bristol. We're doing this now currently. And then we need to turn heading 103 degrees once we overfly that VOR, that NDB station. So you can see that NDB arrow is just starting to turn. And once we fly over it, it will flick and it will change our direction. So, and then we want to fly 103 degrees. There we go, it's just changed, if you noticed. So the second you overfly it, there's a little blip and then it changes, and it's showing now that we're behind, we're actually in front of the NDB, flying away from it. So now we fly that 103 degrees. We might have to adjust the course for the wind. So 106 degrees, and that should keep us on that track. And then we just fly the remainder of the approach as we just did. And we've got everything else set up ready. You can see the ILS modes and everything are still on. ILS DME27 110.5. We've got the ILS mode on the nav display ready. We've got the ILS on the primary flight display all ready to go still. And we need to commit to our descent to 2,500. And as we do that, we set up for another go at the approach. So as long as you've briefed yourself and you know what to expect roughly, should you need to have to do a go around, and the action, when you need to go around, the action is immediate and proper, everything else is calm. There was no rushing from myself throughout any of that. There was no panic or, oh my god, what if this, what if that. We've just flown as per the charts. And again, if air traffic control tell us to fly a different pattern, that's fine. We just fly whatever heading they tell us to head to, and whatever altitude they tell us to fly to. Bear in mind there still might be speed restrictions and things as well. So we're 8 miles now, so we can actually turn back in now and head back for 268 degrees. So at this point, we would air traffic control would be most likely telling us bits, but if not, what we would have done is announced, as we're passing that NDB, we would announce we're at 3,000 feet, passing the Bristol NDB, heading 103 degrees, so that every other aircraft around us knows what we're doing. And now we would be turning left base. So it would be Speedbird 52 Papa turning left base, runway 27. But if we had tower on, they would already know that. They would probably be telling us to turn base. So now we're working to intercept the ILS. In we go. And now we can go gear down again. We're actually a much shorter finals than before. We're at 6 miles and we're just intercepting the ILS now. So if we were on Unicom, we would announce Bristol traffic, Speedbird 52 Papa, re-established on the ILS, runway 27 on the glide. So because we're just about to intercept that glide slope and start descending with it, we would be on the glide. You could just say Bristol traffic, Speedbird 52 Papa, finals ILS, runway 27. And then just set everything up as before. Again, what happens if we need to go around? Well, it's fine, we've just done it. Climb 3,000 feet, turn right, back to that Bristol NDB, track that flashing green arrow, and then we exit 103 degrees, back to 8 miles, and then we turn left as we've just done to re-establish for another approach. So we've got gear down, everything. Let's reset the cabin check. So we just press all call again, make sure the crew are in the seats, and we need to make sure we had, this is one thing I didn't do on the way down actually, to be fair, make sure you have your missed approach altitude set in the altitude for the autopilot there. And also, it should already be there, but because we've been manually selecting heading, we can see that blue arrow by 320, that's still stuck there, so bring that back round to 268. So because we've already flown a missed approach, we just need to tweak some bits on the aircraft just to reset some of it, so that if we have to go around again, everything will work as it should when we need it, because it is instantaneous. And now it would be Speedbird 52 Papa, clear to land, runway 27, surface wind 219 degrees, 2 knots. Or whatever the wind reading would be. And that would be tower telling us we're clear to land, and we'd read back Speedbird 52 Papa, clear to land. I highly recommend, if you're not sure what you're really worried about, going onto VATSIM and giving it a go, just fly some of these charts, as we've just done here for Bristol. Pick an airport that you like. Gatwick's a really good one because it is a bit simpler. And just fly the go-arounds a couple of times, just so you get used to what it feels like. But the most important thing is having that instant response, toga, climb. Okay, so just approaching minimums now. Bit of wind shear, look, bit of gust. But we're fine, stable. And we're down. So Bristol's got a notorious hump in the runway. We're actually using UK2000 scenery, which I've paid for, but it's absolutely fantastic. I love it. So they've actually been able to model that bump in properly, and the airport is exactly how I remember it, having worked there years ago. And there we go, guys. Welcome to Bristol Airport. If you haven't already done so, make sure you download the FlyByWire A32NX. You can find the stable version on FlyByWire.com. FlyByWireSim.com, actually, I think that website is. Or you can find them on Discord as well. And let me know how you guys get on as well if you have a go at a go around. Give it a go and let me know how you've done in the comments, and simultaneously as well, if you have any questions whatsoever, then by all means I'm always happy to answer them, as those of you who subscribe to my channel know. I answer quite a few questions throughout the week from lots of people. Make sure you click on that subscribe button and check out my other tutorials as well. For the charts, I was using chartfox.org. You can connect your VATSIM account to ChartFox, and basically it gives you free charts, which is really good. For ground now, as an example, we would be we're using the ground taxiway charts, and we also use the ground parking docking charts as well here, so we can see every stand that we might have to use. If you haven't already checked this out, I'll very quickly show you guys the amazing Bristol Airport from UK2000. It's a really good price as well. I think it was around about £15, British pounds, but it's exactly how I remember it. You've got the Zulu hold point here. You've got all of the actual stand markings on the asphalt as well, which is amazing, and proper little runway markings and things as well. Zulu 1, there we go, for the hold. Red, so it's a potential stop sign. And you've got the general aviation hangars and bits over on the right hand side as well. There's two options for this scenery. There's actually a static aircraft option, so that you get some Ryanair and Thompson 737s and things already put into the airport static, and they stay there forever. Or as I like to have it, I just like to have it clear. No static aircraft at all, which is ideal for VATSIM. So again, make sure you check out the rest of my channel. If you haven't already done so, then click on that subscribe button. You can find UK2000 scenery. You just punch UK2000 scenery into Google. This is one of my favourite airport mods. It's payware, but it is lovely to fly into every now and again. And they regularly update it, and they're very responsive to any issues as well. Look at that, it's fantastic, isn't it? Stand 1. Yeah. Make sure you let me know how you guys get on with your practice of go-arounds. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope to see you guys again very soon for either some live streams or some videos. Thank you for watching. See you soon.